There is a letter sitting on my desk tonight, and I have read it 4 times already. It came in a plain white envelope, the handwriting careful, the kind of penmanship they used to teach in schools when we were young. And near the end of the letter, this woman, she is 78 years old, and her name for tonight I will call her Margaret. She wrote one sentence that I have not been able to put down. She wrote, "I am not afraid of dying. I am afraid of the small things I am doing every day that I do not even know are hurting me." I want you to sit with that for a moment, because if you are watching this tonight, perhaps in your favorite chair, perhaps with a cup of tea cooling beside you, perhaps with the house quiet in a way it did not used to be, I suspect Margaret's sentence found you for a reason. And I promise you, before this evening is finished, we will come back to her letter in full. We will read the whole thing. And what she asked me at the very end, the question I have been turning over all week, I will answer it as honestly as I know how. But first, there are 4 other letters I want to open with you. 4 letters from 4 different people, all of them past 70, all of them writing to me because something quiet has been troubling them. And in each letter, I believe, is a habit that many doctors observe can shorten our years, not through some dramatic event, but through the slow, gentle erosion of the small choices we make between breakfast and bedtime. I have spent more than 2 decades working with older adults, sitting at kitchen tables, walking beside hospital beds, listening in living rooms where the television was turned down low. I am not a physician, and I will never pretend to be one, but I have learned this. The habits that shorten our lives after 70 are almost never the ones we fear. They are the ones we do not notice. They hide in the ordinary. They live inside the very routines that feel most safe. So tonight, you and I are going to open the mailbox together. 5 letters, 5 habits many of us are quietly living with, and one deep truth I promise you by the end. It is never too late. Not at 70, not at 80, not at 85. Never. Come sit with me. The kettle is on. The first letter is from a man named Harold. He is 74 years old, a retired machinist from Pittsburgh, and he tells me his wife of 51 years passed 2 winters ago. He writes with the steady hand of a man who has spent his life measuring things to the thousandth of an inch. Dear friend, Harold writes, I have started sitting down more. I did not plan it, it just happened. I get up, I make my coffee, I read the paper, and then I sit. I sit through the morning news, I sit through lunch, I sit through the afternoon. By evening my knees ache and I tell myself it is the sitting that will save them. But something in me knows I am wrong. Am I? Harold, I want to tell you something first. You are not failing. Your body is not broken. What you are describing has a name, and it has a solution. Many of us, after we lose someone, after retirement settles in, after the grandchildren move away, many of us discover that our chair has slowly become the center of our world. And there is no shame in that. Grief sits us down, loneliness sits us down, a tired body sits us down. This is human. But here is what researchers at the Mayo Clinic have observed over many years of studying older adults. Prolonged sitting after the age of 70 is not merely rest. It is what some geriatric specialists have begun calling a slow-motion decline. Within just 2 weeks of significantly reduced movement, older muscles can lose measurable strength. The heart, which is itself a muscle, becomes less efficient at moving blood back up from the legs. Blood sugar regulation, which is already more delicate in later years, begins to drift. And perhaps most quietly of all, the brain, which depends on blood flow the way a garden depends on rain, receives a little less of what it needs to stay sharp. I once knew a woman named Eleanor, 76, a retired schoolteacher in Cedar Rapids. She used to tell me that the day she stopped walking to her mailbox was the day her world began to shrink. It was not dramatic. She simply started asking her neighbor to bring the mail in. Then she stopped going to the porch. Then the front door felt far. Within one winter, the stairs to her own bedroom felt like a mountain. And Eleanor said something I have never forgotten. She said, I did not lose my strength all at once. I gave it away, one small errand at a time. So Harold, and anyone tonight who recognizes yourself in Harold's letter, here is the gentle truth. The habit that shortens our years is not sitting. It is sitting unbroken. Many doctors now suggest that after 70, the body benefits enormously from what is sometimes called movement snacking. Standing up every 30 to 40 minutes, walking to the window, rolling the ankles, reaching gently overhead. Nothing heroic, nothing that requires a gym or a program or a new pair of shoes, just the quiet refusal to let the chair become the whole room. And Harold, I will say this to you directly. Your knees do not need more rest. They need more kindness in the form of gentle, frequent motion. The chair is not your enemy, but the chair is not your friend either if you never leave it. The takeaway from Harold's letter tonight is simple. After 70, stillness is not safety. Gentle, frequent movement is one of the greatest gifts we can give the body that has carried us this far. The second letter comes from Doris. She is 81, a retired pediatric nurse. And she writes to me from a small house in Savannah with a screened porch, and she tells me, a very opinionated cat named Beatrice. I have a confession, Doris writes. I have not been sleeping, not properly. I go to bed at 9 because I am tired. I wake at 1 in the morning and I lie there until 3. Then I sleep again until 5. Then I am up. I have told myself for years that old people simply do not sleep. Is that true? Or have I been lying to myself? Doris, my dear, and I say that with all the warmth I have, you have not been lying to yourself. You have been repeating something that many of us have been told, and it is one of the most quietly harmful myths our generation carries. The idea that older adults simply need less sleep, or that broken sleep is the natural price of a long life, is one that researchers at Harvard Medical School and the National Institute on Aging have gently but firmly disputed for years now. The truth is softer and more hopeful. Our sleep architecture does change as we age. We spend a little less time in the deepest stages. We wake more easily, this is normal, but needing only 4 or 5 broken hours is not normal, and it is not harmless. Sleep is when the brain washes itself. Sleep is when the heart rests its rhythm. Sleep is when blood pressure drops into its healing range. Sleep is when memory consolidates the events of the day into the story of your life. When we chronically shortchange sleep after 70, many doctors observe a cascade. The immune system dims, blood sugar becomes harder to steady, the mood grows heavier, balance becomes less certain, and the risk of falls, which is already the great hidden danger of our years, quietly rises. I once spent an evening with a gentleman named Walter, 79, a retired dentist from Portland. Walter had convinced himself for a decade that his 3 hours then 3 hours pattern was simply how old men sleep. His daughter finally convinced him to speak with his physician. It turned out Walter's habit of a strong cup of coffee after dinner, a habit he had kept since he was 30, had become in his 70s a completely different thing. His body no longer processed caffeine the way it once had. What flushed out of a younger man in 6 hours was still lingering in Walter at midnight. He made one change once. He moved his last coffee to before noon. Within 3 weeks, Walter told me, he slept the longest unbroken stretch he had known since the Reagan administration. Does her question sound like yours tonight, Doris? Does Walter's story sound familiar to any of you sitting with me right now? Many of us are quietly sabotaging our sleep with habits that were harmless at 40 and are costly at 75. Late caffeine, a television left on, a room that is too warm, a glass of wine we tell ourselves helps us drift off, when in fact it fractures the second half of the night. Bright overhead lights right up until bedtime, when the aging eye needs softer, warmer light to signal the brain that evening has come. The habit to release, Doris, is the belief that broken sleep is simply your lot. It is not. And the takeaway from your letter tonight is this. Protecting sleep after 70 is not a luxury. It is one of the most powerful acts of self-care available to us, and unlike almost anything else in medicine, it costs nothing. The third letter is from Raymond. He is 72, a retired postal carrier in Albuquerque, and he writes with the dry humor of a man who walked 12 miles a day for 38 years. I walked more miles than most people drive, Raymond writes. So, you would think I earned the right to eat whatever I want in retirement. My wife disagrees. She keeps leaving articles on the kitchen counter. Last week she left one about sugar and the older brain. I threw it away. Then I fished it out of the trash at midnight and read it. Now I cannot sleep. What is the truth about sugar after 70? Raymond, I laughed when I read your letter. And then I read it a second time and I did not laugh, because underneath your humor is one of the most important questions any of us can ask in our later years, and I want to answer you as gently and as honestly as I can. The truth is that our relationship with sugar changes profoundly after 70, and almost no one warned us that it would. In our 40s and 50s, the body forgives a great deal. The pancreas is generous, the muscles are hungry for fuel, and a slice of pie on Sunday moves through us without leaving much of a trace. But by our 70s, that same pie behaves differently. Muscle mass has quietly declined, insulin sensitivity has softened, and the brain, which many researchers at Johns Hopkins have described as exquisitely sensitive to blood sugar swings in later life, begins to feel each spike and crash in ways it did not before. Now hear me carefully. I am not asking you to give up joy. I am not telling you to throw away the birthday cake or refuse the grandchild who brings you a cookie. That is not what this letter is about. What many doctors observe is that the danger is not the occasional dessert. It is the invisible sugar, the sweetened yogurt at breakfast, the flavored coffee creamer, the healthy granola bar, the second helping of white bread at dinner, the fruit juice we drink because we think we ought to. These are the quiet infiltrators. I want to tell you about a woman I met named Beatrice, 73. A retired librarian in Charleston. Beatrice was not overweight. She did not have diabetes. But she came to me exhausted, forgetful, foggy through her afternoons, and convinced she was beginning what she feared most. Her physician gently walked her through a single day of her eating. Sweetened cereal, flavored yogurt, a sandwich on white bread, a cookie with tea, pasta at dinner, a small dessert. None of it looked alarming. All of it, taken together, was keeping her blood sugar on a small roller coaster from morning to night. She made 3 quiet changes over 3 months: plain oatmeal with berries, a handful of walnuts in the afternoon, whole grain bread instead of white. Within a season, the fog in Beatrice's afternoons had lifted enough that she returned to reading the long novels she had abandoned. She told me, "I did not know I had lost my mind, I had only lost my mornings." And Raymond, before I close your letter, I want to pause and speak to everyone listening tonight. If any of what I have said so far, Harold's chair, Doris's broken nights, Raymond's kitchen counter, if any of this is resonating with you, if you see yourself in these letters, I want you to do one small thing for me. Type the word hope in the comments below. Just those 4 letters. It helps me know who I am speaking to tonight. And it helps me know that these words are landing where they are needed. Hope, that is all. The takeaway from Raymond's letter is this: after 70, sugar is not the enemy. Hidden, constant sugar is. And the smallest changes to the quietest meals of the day can return a clarity you may not have realized you were missing. The 4th letter is from Vivian. She is 77, a retired seamstress in Brooklyn, and her letter is the shortest of all 5. But I have read it more times than any of the others. I stopped calling people. Vivian writes, "I do not know when. It happened slowly. My sister died. My best friend moved to Florida. My husband's memory left before he did. And one morning I realized the phone had not rung in 9 days. And I had not lifted it either. I am not sad, exactly. I am just quiet. Is quiet dangerous?" Vivian, my dear Vivian, yes, quiet, in the way you describe it, can be one of the most dangerous conditions of our later years. And it is the one almost no one writes articles about. Researchers at Harvard have followed thousands of older adults for decades in what has become one of the longest studies of human happiness ever conducted. And the finding that emerges again and again, quietly, stubbornly, unmistakably, is that the quality of our connections in later life predicts our health outcomes more powerfully than almost any diet, any exercise plan, any supplement, any screening. Loneliness in our 70s and 80s is not a mood, it is a physiological state. The body reads sustained isolation the way it reads a low-grade infection. Inflammation rises, blood pressure creeps upward, sleep suffers, the immune system dims, cognitive decline in many studies accelerates, and the risk many geriatric specialists now speak of most often, even more than falls, even more than heart disease, is the quiet retreat from the world. But Vivian, please hear me now, because this is where hope enters the room and refuses to leave. Con at 77 does not have to look like connection at 47. You do not need a wide circle. You do not need a full calendar. You do not need to be the person you were before your sister died and your friend moved and your husband's memory left. The research is remarkably kind on this point. Even small, regular contact, one phone call a week to one person, a short conversation with the mail carrier, a wave to the neighbor across the street, a Sunday call with a grandchild who barely knows what to say. Even these small threads woven consistently protect the aging brain and heart in ways that astonish researchers. I knew a gentleman named Frank, 82, a retired welder in Milwaukee, who, after his wife passed, found himself in a silence so complete he said he could hear the refrigerator thinking. Frank did one thing. He decided he would call one person every Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, just one, a cousin, an old coworker, a nephew, a neighbor who had moved. He kept a small notebook of names and worked his way through it, and when he reached the end, he started again at the top. Within a year, Frank told me, 3 of those people were calling him first. Within 2 years, his Sunday afternoons had become the anchor of his week. He said, "I did not know I was drowning until someone threw me a rope I had thrown myself." Vivian, your quiet is not a character flaw. It is not weakness, it is the natural gravitational pull of a life that has lost several of its planets. But quiet becomes dangerous only when we accept it as permanent. And it is never too late, never, at 77, never at 87, to lift the phone and dial one number. The takeaway from Vivian's letter is this: after 70, the habit most likely to shorten our years is the one that hides best, the slow, unnoticed retreat from other human voices. And the antidote is so small it almost embarrasses us. One call, one wave, one name in a notebook. And now, we come back to Margaret, the letter I began with, the one I have read 4 times. I told you at the beginning that Margaret wrote, "I am not afraid of dying. I am afraid of the small things I am doing every day that I do not even know are hurting me." I want to read you the rest of her letter now, because it is the reason I chose to build this whole evening around the 5 envelopes on my desk. Margaret writes, "I am 78 years old. My husband is still with me. Thank God. My children call. My health, on paper, is fine. But last month I fell in my own kitchen. I was not dizzy. I was not sick. I simply misjudged the distance between the counter and the stool. I caught myself on the edge of the sink, and I stood there for a long time, shaking, and I realized something. I have been treating my body like the body I had at 50. I have been standing on chairs to reach the top shelf. I have been carrying laundry down basement stairs in the dark. I have been getting out of bed too quickly in the morning. I have not been drinking water because I do not want to get up in the night. I have been skipping my glasses when I just go to the kitchen. None of these things feel dangerous. All of them, I now think, are am I right? And if I am, what do I do? Margaret, you are right. And I want to answer you now, with every ounce of care I can put into words. The single, most preventable cause of shortened life after 70, the one that many geriatricians at the Cleveland Clinic will speak of before they speak of almost anything else, is the fall. Not the fall itself, but the cascade the fall begins. A broken hip at 78 is not a broken hip in the way a broken hip is at 48. The recovery is longer. The muscle loss during recovery is steep. The confidence loss afterward is often permanent. And the year that follows a serious fall is statistically one of the most fragile years of a human life. But Margaret, and this is the part I want you to underline in your own mind, nearly every fall in later life is preceded by exactly the habits you named in your letter. Standing on chairs, rushing out of bed, walking through dim hallways without glasses, skipping water because we do not want to wake in the night, carrying things with both hands full so the stair rail is unreachable, wearing loose slippers on smooth floors. Ignoring the small dizziness we feel when we stand up too fast. You did not fall by accident, Margaret. You fell because your body has entered a new chapter and the habits of the old chapter no longer fit. And here is the hopeful truth. This is one of the most modifiable risks in all of geriatric medicine. Seal changes made with quiet consistency dramatically reduce the risk. Rising from bed in 2 stages. Sit first, then stand. Drinking water throughout the day, even at the cost of one nighttime trip, which is far safer than the dehydration that thickens the blood and dims the balance. Wearing your glasses every time you cross a room. A nightlight in the hallway to the bathroom. A sturdy grab bar by the shower. Not because you are frail, but because you are wise. Slippers with backs on them, not slip-ons. A small step stool with a handle instead of a kitchen chair. And most of all, the willingness to say out loud and without shame, I will ask for help with the top shelf. Now Margaret asked me one more thing at the very end of her letter. And it is the postscript I promised you at the beginning of this evening. She wrote, if I do all of this, if I change these habits, do I get the years back? Margaret, my dear friend, I cannot promise you years. No one can. But I can tell you what many decades of research and many decades of sitting with older adults have taught me. The people who change these habits in their 70s and 80s do not merely add time. They add the kind of time worth having. They add mornings they remember. They add afternoons they enjoy. They add evenings without fear. They add the quiet dignity of moving through their own home with confidence. And more often than the statistics can measure, they add years, not because they outran death, but because they stopped quietly inviting it in through the small open windows of daily life. The takeaway from Margaret's letter, and from all 5 letters tonight, is this: the habits that shorten life after 70 are almost never the dramatic ones. They are the small, invisible, deeply human ones. The chair we never leave, the sleep we do not defend, the sugar we do not see, the phone we do not lift, the stool we should not stand on, and every single one of them, every single one, can be changed tonight, not next month, not next New Year, tonight. Because it is never too late. It is never too late at 70. It is never too late at 80. It is never too late at 85. If you are breathing tonight, you are early enough. I want to say one more thing before I put the letters away. If you have watched this far, if you have sat with Harold in his chair, and with Doris in her broken sleep, and with Raymond at his kitchen counter, and with Vivian by her silent phone, and with Margaret at the edge of her sink, then I believe you are one of the wise ones. Because the wise ones are not the ones who never made these mistakes. The wise ones are the ones who are willing, at 70 or 75 or 82, to look at their own daily life honestly and ask, which of these letters is mine? Perhaps yours is Harold's. Perhaps it is Doris's. Perhaps you are Raymond or Vivian or Margaret. Perhaps you are a little of each. That is the honest truth for most of us. So tonight, before you turn off the light, I would ask you to do just one thing. Choose one letter, only one, and choose one small change from that letter. The smallest one you can find. Not a program, not a plan, not a resolution. Just one small kindness to the body that has carried you this far. Stand up once more before bed. Move your coffee to before noon. Trade your sweetened yogurt for a plain one with berries. Lift the phone and call one name. Put your glasses on before you walk to the kitchen. Just one thing, that is all I ask of you tonight. And if you have a letter in you, if something in what we shared tonight stirred a question of your own, I would love to hear it. Leave one word in the comments below. Just the word hope. That is how I know who is here with me. That is how I know these words found the person they were meant for. Hope. 4 letters. That is enough. If this evening has meant something to you, please take a moment to tap the like button. It truly does help this channel reach other older adults who are sitting alone tonight the way you and I are sitting together. And if you have not yet subscribed, I would be honored if you would. And ring the little bell beside it so the next letter I open finds its way to you as well. And now, my friend, it is late, the tea has gone cold, the letters are back in their envelopes, and I want you to hear these last words gently, the way I would say them if I were sitting across from you at your own kitchen table. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are exactly where the next small step begins. And it is never, never too late. Sleep well tonight. Move gently tomorrow. Call someone on Sunday. Drink a little more water than you did yesterday. And remember that the body that has carried you into your 70s and 80s is not finished with you yet. Peace to your heart, health to your bones, ret to your mind. And I will be here with another letter when you are ready to open the next one together. Good night, my friend.